All right, guys, thank you very much for joining me tonight on this freezing night. Very cold, but you guys made it out. Thank you very much. We're going to finish the Pticha, the introduction of Sha'ar Bitachon tonight, Be'ezrat Hashem, and start the first and second and get up to the second chapter, including some of it Li Neder today. So let's just finish up the Pticha of the introduction of Sha'ar Bitachon. Baruch Hashem, Pticha was very long. We spent a lot of time on it, but let's finish up. Okay, Achat HaTo'alot, the last benefit that the Chovot HaLevavot mentions for having Bitachon is Shaboteach b'Hashem sameach b'chol davar she'Hashem mesabev elav. Somebody who has true Bitachon in Hashem is actually happy with everything that Hashem sends his way. Meaning, when you know how things work, you actually find joy in whatever comes your direction. The simplest example is when a person has any kind of yisurim. Yisurim means he suffers in any kind of way. God forbid, we don't want suffering, we're not asking for suffering. But if it does come onto a person, in whatever way it may come, the person who understands and has true trust in Hashem sincerely is happy because he knows that this is actually going to bring him kaparat avonot. It's going to atone for whatever he's done in the past, and it's actually going to enable him to have eternity together with Hashem. The Gemara says that many things are considered to be yisurim. For example, a person wants to take out of his pocket a $5 bill, and instead he takes out a $10 bill. That is considered to be yisurim. That's considered to be suffering. And therefore, the person who goes through that actually is considered to be receiving atonement. So instead of him being upset and mad, and why did this happen to me? So he goes, no, this is actually to my benefit. And he's sameach bechilko. He's happy with the portion that Hashem has given him because he knows this is actually what's best for him. We said, Chavot HaLevavot told us already, and we're going to repeat it now, that the best example is kegamul alei imo. Kegamul alei imo means that a person has to feel that he is like a baby who is being taken care of by the mother. Just like a mother washes the child, bathes the child, and sometimes when you do a shower, the baby starts screaming and can't handle it. It's so frustrating. Baby is really, really, really upset and letting you hear about it. But still, when that baby grows up, that baby will understand that that was the right thing to do. He needed to be bathed. He needed to be washed. He needed to get cleaned. And when he has his own children, he will do the same thing to his own children because he knows it's the right thing to do. At the time, he didn't understand it. At the time, he didn't realize it. But nevertheless, it was something very beneficial for him. So we have to realize we are the baby and Hashem is the mother taking care of all of us. Kigamul alei imo, kagamul alai nafshi. So that is our soul being taken care of by Hashem Yitbarach. The best example of how Yisurim work and how they affect the person is, let's say that there was a kingdom where the king made a rule that if you violate a certain law, so then there's going to be a 500 kilo stone dropped upon the person, and obviously that will kill that person, right? It's going to be a disaster. And then surely enough, the son of the king is caught doing that very egregious crime. And now he has to have a 500 kilo stone dropped on him, which is obviously going to kill him. So what does the king do? The king goes ahead and makes a kind of compromise. And he says, we're going to drop all 500 kilos on this guy, on my son. However, we're going to first shred up the stone into little pieces so that instead of it being one big ball, it's like a gram here, a gram there, etc. And it's like 500 kilos of pebbles instead of being this one massive, hello, welcome. Instead of being this one massive block of weight on the person, but instead of it being like that, you shred it down into 500 kilo of pebbles instead of that massive stone. For this reason, Yisurim are beneficial. Why? because that's what they accomplish. They take that massive, massive block and they shred it down into those little pieces. So the punishment still comes, but it's much more softened. And that's the benefit. So the person says to himself, my gosh, why did this happen to me? Why did I have to go through this? Okay, it's a challenge. But he's sincerely happy. Sincerely happy. In other words, you're not going, wow, I guess I just have to, come to terms with my terrible fate. You're not saying, no, I wish it was different, but I have to just come to terms with this disaster, that happened. And okay, I have no choice. The opposite. He's samech b'chelko. He's happy with what is going on. He's happy with what Hashem has allotted for him. Why? Because he knows this is the best possible thing that could have happened to me. Again, it's a level. I'm not saying that it's easy to go through, but to reach that level. But if you really are a person with bitachon, and again, it's hard to be. I'm not saying it's easy to be, but a person who really has that level of bitachon understands that they have every reason to rejoice and be happy over what Hashem has brought to them. So that's what the Chovot Levavot is telling us. That's the last benefit that we have. True happiness in any given situation. And it's true, you see the Chachamim that we have in the Gemara, they were always happy. They went through a lot of difficulty. Think about Rabbi Akiva, for example. Rabbi Akiva went through so much difficulty. His father-in-law made he was the wealthiest guy in the entire Yerushalayim, and he made a neder that his son-in-law cannot benefit anything from him. And, Rabbi Akiva had a daughter that got divorced, right? Ben Azai was his son-in-law, but he couldn't be a husband. He was so devoted to Torah. His daughter got divorced. He eventually was killed by the Romans. They peeled his skin off. And as he was dying, he said, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. And he was rejoicing as he was dying. It's like the most incredible level. But the point is that no matter what Hashem threw his way, like Chovot Levavot says, Kol davar she'Hashem misavev elav, whatever Hashem throws his way, he is completely happy. Gam hu negativo, even if it's something that's against your nature. Naturally, nobody's happy when these things take place. But he's happy. Why? Because he understands that every single thing that takes place is there for his benefit, and Hashem is taking care of him. So that's the last one on the list that the Chovot Levavot gives us. Now that we finished the intro to the Sha'ar Bitachon, can you imagine all of these classes? We just did the introduction. The actual 7 chapters seem to move a little bit more quickly than the intro. But now he says, let me give you a breakdown of the 7 chapters that are coming ahead so that you know what's going on. The first chapter, he says, Chovot Levavot is extremely systematic, very, very organized in how he writes his book. He says there are differences between when somebody has true bitachon and when somebody has bitachon, but it's adulterated, it's warped, it's not correct. For example, there's a concept in the halacha called chasid shoteh. Chasid shoteh means somebody who's a pious man, but he's not. He's not really a person that is doing what Hashem wants. The Gemara gives an example. A fellow walks down the street and he sees a river to his left, and a lady is drowning in the river, God forbid. And he says, I can't go save her. She's a woman. I can't touch a woman. Right? So he lets her down, right? So that's called shfichut damim. So he does bitachon, says that I can't do certain things. Okay, but Hashem doesn't want you to let the lady drown in the river, right? So that's called chasid shoteh. So here's a guy who says, I'm going to jump from the 3rd floor of the building, and I have bitachon. Hashem will take care of me. That doesn't work like that, right? That's not bitachon. So chapter 1 explains what is bitachon, what is a chasid shoteh, what is a person that he doesn't really have bitachon. Number 2, why does Hashem want us to have this? Why is this something that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is telling us you need to have bitachon? Number 3, it's not an option, but it's an obligation to have it. We must have bitachon. It's a requirement in order to live our lives as proper Jews. And also at the same time, we're also supposed to do hishtadlut. We're supposed to put in an effort. And there are times where it's too much effort. There are times where it's too little effort. So that's the balance that we've spoken about in the past. This week is the parasha that we see it in the most glaring way. Who knows why? Who remembers what we spoke about? Anybody? No? The idea of Yosef HaTzadik. What was the story with Yosef? Anybody?
That he was depending on the chef and the person.
What did he tell this? Right, he told the Sarah Mashkim, he told the cupbearer after he interpreted his dreams, he said, right, Kim Zachartani, right, remember me, V'hizkartani el Paro, you mention my name to Paro and tell him about the fact that I interpreted your dream, you get me out of here. He said 2 extra words. He said 2 extra words in order to help himself get out. It was considered to be, on his level, too much hishtadlut, too much effort. And because of that, he got stuck for 2 more years in jail. And it was after 2 years, then Paro finally had his dreams about the 7 fat cows and the 7 skinny cows and the 7 years of grain and the 7 skinny years of grain, 1 ate the whole thing. When? 2 years later. Why? Because he did 2 words extra. On his level, that was considered extra. For the average guy, that would be considered not enough. So for each person, like we mentioned in the past, there's a certain amount of ishtadlut you're supposed to do, and less than that is considered not to be bitachon, but laziness. So you have to have it's a fine line between bitachon and between ishtadlut, what's expected of you and what's not, and it all depends on the level that you are on. The 4th chapter, he says, is going to talk about how some people don't do certain things because they think it's bitachon, and then like we said before, but really it's laziness. The Chavot HaLevavot says something really interesting in the beginning of this book. Again, this book, Chavot HaLevavot, was written by Rabbeinu Bachye ibn Pekuda. He was a great tzaddik about 1,000 years ago. And like I told you guys when we started learning this, Maran, the Bet Yosef, writes that the angel that he used to learn Torah with told him, and he has a whole book of what the angel told him, that you should always learn Chavot HaLevavot. Always learn this book because it's really important for your growth. So he himself writes in the beginning of his book, he almost did not write the book. He said, who am I to give musar to other people, to go and to give people, a lecture about how to improve themselves? So I didn't finish improving myself. What right do I have to go tell people to improve themselves? And he put it away. He did not write the book. And then it dawned upon him a few years later, maybe the very thought that he had, that was an inappropriate thing for him to write such a book, maybe that wasn't really his Yetzer HaTov speaking. Maybe that was not his good inclination. Maybe it actually stemmed from laziness. He didn't feel like he wanted to do it. Can you imagine how honest you have to be to write that in the introduction to your book? He wrote it. He said, yeah, maybe it was, I think it was more laziness than an actual desire to do what Hashem wants. And then he wrote the book. The amazing thing. Sometimes there are things that happen that they conceal themselves. There are moments where you have a hard time identifying the Yetzer Hara. That's why it says when the angel fought with Esav, we learned in the parasha we read a couple of days ago on Shabbat. So Esav's angel came to fight with Yaakov, and there's a machloket in the Gemara. How did he look? What did he look like? So one opinion says he looked like a Rasha, the wicked angel that came to fight with Yaakov. The other opinion said, no, he looked like a Talmid Chacham. He looked like a Torah scholar. What's the idea? Sometimes the Yetzer Hara comes at you in the form of a Torah scholar. It's called a frum Yetzer Hara, a religious Yetzer Hara, a Yetzer Hara that comes to you in a form of, hey, aren't you very arrogant? You want to write this book as if you are the master of Musar and you can give Musar? Isn't that very heavy arrogance on your part? So it's like, wow, yeah, I am very arrogant. How dare me do such a thing? But that's the Yetzer Hara coming at you in the form of a Talmid Chacham. And it's your job to identify that this is actually not Emet, this is the Yetzer Hara. And that's a very big challenge. It's hard to know many times what is the Yetzer Hara and what is not the Yetzer Hara. Usually they say that a good test to be able to know if it's Yetzer Hara or not is what are you more inclined to do? What are you leaning more towards? if you're leaning more towards that, it's probably your Yetzer Hara. That's the interesting thing. The Vilna Gaon says. If you're leaning more in the direction of, I want to not write this book.
Because you're lazy?
Yeah, then probably that's the Yetzer Hara. Again, the Yetzer Hara is not telling you because you're lazy. The Yetzer Hara is telling you, how dare you? Who are you? You're going to go and tell people how they should conduct themselves? What are you perfect? Have you fixed yourself? And meanwhile, a book that the angel told the Bet Yosef you should always learn doesn't get written. It's an amazing thing. So therefore, the Vilna Gaon says if you have a certain leaning, a certain kind of inclination to do one thing, if you're leaning more towards one, you're getting pulled more towards one of the two options, generally speaking, that's your Yetzer Hara. Go the opposite. It's an interesting thing. Okay, then he says in chapter 5, he's going to tell us over here that there are some people that, again, they are wonderfully religious people and they're working people. Bitachon, right, is seemingly there, but when they actually conduct themselves in their business, you see that they have no bitachon whatsoever. So in the 5th chapter, he's going to speak about the difference between the person who's working with bitachon and working without bitachon. And, that is something that, unfortunately, we see all the time. Not every person who works, God forbid, is immoral in how he conducts himself. But unfortunately, if a person conducts himself immorally in business, it's clear as day that he does not have bitachon. That's a fact. Because if you have bitachon, there's absolutely no reason for you to cheat anybody, to do anything bad to anybody, to cut any corners, to undercut people. There's just no need. Because if you sincerely believe that Hashem is taking care of you and your parnasah, then there's no reason to try and outsmart and trick people in a way that's immoral. It's just not necessary. I'm getting the same amount of money anyway. So that's important for us to remember as well. Chavot Levon is going to talk about that. I have unfortunately seen many cases like that, where you see a person has a deal. For example, I was once involved in a case with a guy, the beard this long, and he had a company, perfume company, whatever, and somebody opened up an account for him with different stores, different accounts, and they have a signed contract that he's supposed to get X amount of commission per sale that they make. And he opened up their contracts for them with different, and came time to pay. And the guy says, I'm sorry, it's too much. I can't pay you. Why not? We have a deal. No, the margins are, not as much as I thought, and I can't pay you. Well, wait a second. What did you think would happen? You have a product. You told me if I sell your product, I open up stores for you, I open up accounts for you, then you'll pay me X commission. What happened? It's not the first time. It's not the last time, unfortunately. These are things that happen all the time. Another story I heard from Rabbi Ben Porat Shlita, he says that there was once a fellow in his neighborhood that when he was younger, they lived in Antwerp, and he said to his father, tell me, what do you mean when you say that there are people that do things that are not so immoral? His father had a diamond company or whatever it was. So he said, let me show you. They were in the middle of talking in their office, and they quietly walked to the door. And the father just kind of quickly opened the door, and he saw somebody that was with his ear to the door, eavesdropping on their conversation. He said, son, let me tell you something. You see, this guy, he thinks I don't know what he's doing. But he listens to my conversations while I'm selling things on the phone. And then he calls the very same company and gives them a cheaper deal, selling the same thing. He says, you see, this is called working without bitachon. Because if you really have bitachon, you will not need to do that. You won't need to cheat anybody. You won't need to do anything wrong to anybody. You're going to be successful anyway. Hashem gave you a certain amount at the beginning of the year. That's what you're going to get. Pray for it. It'll come to you. That's it. Finished. You don't have to do anything bad to anybody. And I told you guys, that's what we say in Birkat HaMazon. It's important to do chazar on this stuff. What do we say? What do we say? Beheter velo be'isur. Hashem will give us the parnasah with kavod, with honor and dignity, beheter, in the permissible way, but not in the forbidden way. Meaning, you have the ability to choose how you want it. Do you want it in the permissible way, or do you want it, God forbid, the opposite way? But it's the same number. It's the same thing. It's not changing. You just decide how you want to get it. And a person with bitachon understands that, and he doesn't need to undercut somebody else, etc. Okay, that's going to be in the 5th chapter of Hashem. The 6th chapter is about people who want to party hard for the first 20, 30 years of their life, and they say, we're going to do teshuvah afterwards. So that's a very common, unfortunately, thing. They say, you know what, we'll do 20, 30 years, whatever we want, and then, we'll do teshuvah. Or they say, you know what, Hashem wants me to serve him. I'll serve Hashem when he gives me food, when he gives me wealth, when he gives me honor. Then that's when I'll start to serve Hashem. So the Chovot Levavot is going to discuss why that's the wrong attitude and how that's not the right attitude, of course. And of course, last but not least, the 7th chapter is going to discuss the idea that in order to live a life of bitachon, you have to maintain your bitachon. You have to train it like a muscle and keep on working out that muscle of bitachon. Because the Yetzer Hara is always going to try and take away your bitachon from you. And that is a very big problem. Because just like a person who is on a higher level, the challenges that Hashem sends him are not low-level challenges. For example, let's say everybody in this room, if I present a Big Mac from McDonald's on this table right now, right? Does anybody in this room have a desire to eat the Big Mac? None of us are really so, it doesn't really do anything for us because we know it's not kosher, it's treif, we would never touch it, it doesn't even begin to appeal to us. There are other people that are struggling with keeping kosher. Okay, for them, they're on a little bit of a lower level. So for them, the Big Mac is an issue. Wow, I've eaten Big Macs my entire life. So now should I do it, should I not? There's a question mark here. But when you're on a little bit of a higher level, it's not even an issue. You don't even it doesn't even come to your, it's not an option. Now, when a person has bitachon, so the Yetzer Hara targets that guy specifically. Why? Because he's on a much higher level. So the Yetzer Hara has to do things to get rid of his bitachon. So there are going to be challenges for that person that don't really come up for other people that are on a lower level. So unfortunately, that's the reason why when it comes to Am Yisrael, which we have a very different level than the rest of the world in terms of our spirituality, when we fall, it says we fall all the way to rock bottom. It's like as high as you can go, that's how low you can go as well, the opposite. It's always balanced like that. And the tests that Hashem sends, or the Yetzer Hara brings to somebody who has bitachon, are much higher and much more difficult than the average Joe Schmo. So a person has to work his bitachon muscles all the time, because if there's one thing the Yetzer Hara wants to take away from you, it's your bitachon. And that's something which is going to require a lot of effort. So that he's going to get to in the 7th chapter. B'Shem Hashem Na'aseh v'Natzliach. We're about to begin the 1st chapter. Let's do it together. Okay. Mahut habitachon hi. So what is bitachon? Menuchat hanefesh shel ba'al habitachon. It's the menuchat hanefesh, which means the peace of mind, the tranquility that a person has when he has trust in Hashem. V'sheyeh libo samuch al mishu boteach alav. When you have total trust in the one that you are trusting in, shehu oset mashu tov v'nachon avro, that he's doing what is good and proper for you, badavar shu boteach alav be'etem licholto v'yidiato badvarim shem letovato, and you know that it's exactly what you need. He's going to take care of you in exactly the way that you need. Ach ha'ikar asher mikocho nikba bitachon belev ha'adam. The most important thing is that the bitachon will be instinctive in your heart. You have to understand there is a difference between emunah and bitachon. Emunah is intellectual. Emunah means I know that there's a God out there. It's in your intellect. Bitachon is an instinct. It's how you react, how you respond to things. You've trained yourself in a way that now your heart will respond either with happiness or the opposite to the situation that you are in. So, so you have full faith that the one who promised you will fulfill the promise and will do what he promised. And not only that, you're even going to have faith that he loves you so much that you are going to be the recipient of benefit from him, even if he did not promise it to you, and even if he did not make himself say that he's going to do it, as an act of kindness and generosity. Meaning, you're even trusting this person to the point, saying person, but we're talking about an entity, to the point where you're so relying on this person that even if you don't deserve it, and even if you were not promised it, you still have faith that this is going to be taken care of. That's the level of bitachon chovot halevavot is talking about. We mentioned this in the past, the idea that even if a person is undeserving, he still has the bitachon that Hashem will help him and will take care of him. That's the opinion of chovot halevavot. So far, so good, guys? You guys are awfully quiet tonight. No? We're good? No questions? Everyone's very cold. It's very cold, yes. Okay. So that's the first step. The idea that you can trust the person, that you trust that the person will be able to do what it is that you need to get done, even if he did not promise that to you, but you know that he loves you and is going to do kindness and be generous with you. That is the level of bitachon. Where did we see that this was something that was challenging? What we just read in last week's parasha, Vayishlach Yaakov, says Vayira Yaakov meod vayetzer lo. Yaakov was very scared. He was very terrified because of the fact that Esav is coming to kill him with 400 men. So he was very scared. He said, "Wait a minute, maybe the promise of Hashem to help me is gone. Maybe I did something wrong and I sinned. I messed up." Right? That's an issue. What ended up happening? Baruch Hu took care of him all the way. No issues. Hashem promised, Hashem will take care of you. And even though you were afraid that you may have done something wrong, it still didn't happen. You still, Baruch Hashem, were protected. So here, Chovot HaLevavot says that's the bitachon, to trust in Hashem, that Kadosh Baruch Hu will help you, even though He didn't promise you that He's going to take care of you when you've done A, B, C. But still, you have bitachon that Kadosh Baruch Hu has rachmanut on you, and will still have mercy and will take care of you. Okay, now, what time is it? Still have a few minutes. Okay. Why would somebody trust in a person? So the first thing that we have to understand is trust comes when you need the person to love you. If you're going to trust somebody, it needs to be number one prerequisite is that he loves you. He really cares for you. When somebody can tell that this person loves me, cares for me, then he trusts that he will really take care of him. He trusts that because he loves him and because he cares for him, then when he wants something from him, he'll come through. That's step one. Step two, you also need to know, you see, sometimes you might love somebody, but you love other things more, and you care about other things more. So yeah, I love you, but when you asked me to come pick you up from the train station and I left you stranded in the rain, why? Because I was busy, or I forgot about you, or whatever it may be. So I forgot about you. Or maybe I was just too lazy, and I didn't really care that much about you. I love you, of course I love you, but you expect me to leave in the middle of the game? Middle of the game, soccer game? I'm not going to leave middle of the game. Come pick you up. Why? Get caught in the rain? So even if I love you, doesn't necessarily mean that I'll remember to pick you up. Doesn't necessarily mean that I will leave my comfort zone for you. I love you. I think very highly of you. But doesn't mean that I'm going to do something for you if it doesn't necessarily match what I'm looking to do right now. That's number two. Number three, even if I'm reliable and I come through, and the last time that you asked me to lend you $100,000, I came through like a champ and I gave you $100,000, and you see that I love you and you see that I am reliable. Every time you ask me for something, I was always there for you. Beautiful. Great. But then, what if sometimes the person who's giving and doing and helping And reliable, what if he gets sick one day? He might not always be healthy to be able to help you out. What if he dies? He might not always be around. So how can you trust in somebody that, okay, he loves you and he's reliable, but he's not always going to be here? Says the Chovot HaLevavot, למרות שברור לו שחברו מרחם ומשגיח עליו, even though it's clear as day that he really does love you and he does take care of you and he is reliable. על פי רוב נמנעים ממנו האמצעים הדרושים להגשמת רצונו. Most of the time, even such a person will not have the ability to be able to take care of this person. And that's something which is very problematic. So the true trust, what we're going to end up saying over here, is really when you're going to see somebody that has all of these different capabilities, all of these different attributes. And obviously the end result will be that the only one who actually has the ability and cares for you and all of the things that we're going to mention is Hashem. And that's the only one that you can really trust. And therefore, that's where you should put your trust. So Chovot HaLevavot is going to go on into that in the next section. So I guess we'll stop over here for tonight, and we'll continue, B'ezras Hashem, Bli Neder next week if we can. All right, guys, if we have any questions, B'chavod, now's a great time. Yeah.
It's a little bit off the subject, but it's related to
Off the subject. Oh.
No, it's the same subject.
Yeah, okay.
So, I don't want this to sound bad, but when Yaakov Avinu, he was in a very high level and Rivka even was in very high level. The fact that Rivka tells Yaakov, do this, pretend to be Esav and go get the blessing from Yitzchak Avinu. Mm-hmm. So we're talking about Bitachon.
Yeah.
Didn't they have to have Bitachon and Hashem? In a way they tricked Yitzchak Avinu.
So she was told she had to do that. She received the prophecy that she's required to get the blessing for Yaakov. Problem is that Yitzchak doesn't want to give the blessing to Yaakov. So she was left without an option. So she was told through prophecy.
Why he had such a love for Esau that he was going to give the blessing to him? Why Yitzchak Avinu couldn't see this?
That's a good question. There are different explanations for that. What? Yeah, there are lots of different interpretations to that. Some explain that really Yitzchak knew who Esav was, but at the same time, he felt that by giving him the blessing, that would kind of bring him closer. It's like when somebody is quote unquote at risk, he's maybe going to do this, maybe going to do that. So let's give him the blessing, bring him closer, and that way we don't lose him. That's one interpretation. Another interpretation is, no, it says, Vayehav Yitzchak et Esav kitzai befiv. He liked the fact that Esav was going and hunting and bringing him what he liked, and yeah, he couldn't tell. There are different interpretations for it.
When other nations, they read the Torah, it doesn't give a good impression for the Jewish.
That's the most beautiful thing. I want you to know that what you just said is one of the most beautiful things. Yeah, I want you to know that's one of the most beautiful. Look, let me answer you. That's one of the most beautiful things about the Torah. The Torah doesn't hide anything. It doesn't try to paint a picture that is not. Torah says Moshe Rabbeinu was the greatest tzaddik who ever lived, but he also had a moment of mistake, right? And so did.
He was afraid to do it.
I understand. I'm just explaining that it's okay. Yitzchak Avinu literally put himself on an altar and stretched out his neck to be slaughtered as a sacrifice to God. He was the ultimate of God-fearing people. But it's possible that over here there was an oversight. It's okay. That's the beauty of the Torah. It shows the greatest of people that we have as still people that could potentially make a mistake.
Do you think our nation benefited from that blessing, the tricked blessing?
Of course, it was definitely because that blessing explains that while we follow the mitzvot of Hashem, we'll be on top. We'll always be on top when we are connected to Elokim. And that blessing actually keeps us in check. That's why it says V'yiten lecha ha'elokim. Elokim is the attribute of judgment. And the question is, why don't you bless us with mercy? Hashem. And the answer that they give is because Yitzchak Avinu wanted it to be that we're always attached to Hashem. And if you're always getting it, no matter what, then you have a big problem, because that way you at some point say, I don't need Hashem anymore. Elokim means that you get it when you earn it. And if you don't earn it, you don't get it. Now, when it comes to Esav, so then Esav, he gets it all the time, right? It's like it's like when it says about the snake. The snake got cursed that you're always going to eat dirt, meaning your food is always going to be available to you on the ground. Why is that? Isn't that a blessing? No, it's the biggest curse, because now the snake doesn't have to have a connection with God. When you need Hashem, when you pray to Hashem, you realize, oh, I'm not getting rain now. I have to do something. I have to fast. I have to reconnect. That is a connection. It keeps the connection, the spiritual connection alive. So that blessing helped us, even though it might not be what we always want, the flow of Parnasah and Shefa to be there. But sometimes that's not what's good for us, because we become too big and we kick away our spirituality. The Jewish people became fat and we kick away the spirituality. So Yitzchak's bracha was V'itenecha Elokim. You want to be Gvir Le'achecha, you want to be bigger than Esav, stronger than Esav, you want to have everything good, you have to earn it. You have to be in the Midat Adin. So it's an interesting kind of...
Esav was going to get that blessing.
Yeah.
Or it was switched.
Esav was going to get that blessing, but then Yaakov did instead. Yeah.
And going back to your question, why Yitzchak Avinu didn't have that Nubuah?
It's a good question. I don't know. I don't have an answer for you. But it says, you see from here that Rivka was a greater prophetess than Yitzchak.
Yeah, but
she received.
He gave the blessing, then suddenly he saw what Esau was about, right?
Yeah.
Because then right away everything was.
It says he became extremely scared. He became very, very scared when he realized what had happened. There is a lot going on here beyond what meets the eye. But it's important to go back to that point. The Torah paints it in a way that we see that still, at the end of the day, we are people. And it's important that the Torah doesn't make our forefathers out into these leaders that never made any mistakes, which other religions do, right? That's what they try to, so-and-so was this and that, and he never made any mistakes. We don't do that in Torah. We say, no, he was amazing, was tzaddik, and yeah, he had this mistake, or he had that. It's okay. We're people. You understand?
I'm sorry. Then Sarah Imenu passed away. Then Sarah Imenu passed away, and Avraham Avinu married second time with Hagar.
Yeah.
Was she considered Muslim, or did she convert to Judaism? Because she gave birth to a lot of sons, a lot of children, and they consider that to be the imams of the Muslims. But maybe she changed her name, maybe she converted to Judaism. So are they considered that her children, they were Jewish, or they were Muslim?
Only the ones who followed the path of Abraham, which means Yitzchak, Yaakov, and his 12 and his tribes. Only they are considered Jewish.
So Hagar was considered Muslim. Did they have?
No, there was no Muslim at the time. It didn't exist. No, but Hagar was given over as a wife to Abraham. He sent her away, and she was considered to be very pious because for all those years she didn't marry anybody else in anticipation maybe Abraham will take her back one day, which he did.
Why she changed her name second time?
She didn't change her name. It's just a name that shows that Hashem was proud of her for holding off on marrying somebody else. Keturah is the same as Ketoret. Ketoret means incense that give an appeasing aroma to Hashem. So her action of not marrying somebody else, waiting, maybe Avraham will take me back one day, that action was very pleasant, was very appeasing to Hashem. So Hashem gave her the name Keturah because she was like Ketoret. You have to realize this woman spoke to an angel not once, twice. Yeah. She was a special lady. Not everybody just gets to marry Avraham, you know? At the same time, Ishmael was a problem. He wasn't behaving properly, so he had to go. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I just wanted to make a comment, this is just my personal theory.
Yeah.
To me, this whole, Sarah said sending away or Rivka did the trick. I think it's ultimately to show that the mothers have the sixth sense. The mothers know the children. The mothers know, fathers, love everyone and want to give to everyone. But at the end of the day, it's the mother. It's about the mother.
That makes sense.
That's what it is.
I hear. There's a lot to that. There's a lot to that. It just happens to be that in this particular case, Rivka wasn't just a mom, she was a Neviah.
Right.
So she received a literal prophecy. So you can't go, she was a prophetess. Yeah, you can't, there's no mistake on that one. Yeah. No, but it's very true. Chazal do say that women, that's why it says when Hashem created Chava, it says, Vayiven Hashem Elokim et hatzela. Hashem built the tzela. And it says that the word Vayiven is the same shoresh as Bina. Bina means understanding. From here, Chazal teach us that Bina Yetera, that there's extra understanding for women, more so than men. And it's a known thing. If a person ever wants to do a deal with somebody and he's not sure, should I go ahead with it or not, bring the guy over for lunch and have the missus take a look at the guy. She'll x-ray the guy, top to bottom. How do you know? What do you mean? I didn't see that. Yeah, because there's bina. Women have an extra bina, more so than men. It's how they're made. So yeah, there's a very valid point to what you're saying. And men overlook these things, but that's why you have Ezer Kenegdo, right?
Thank you very much.
Okay, guys, thank you for coming out on this cold night.